Name's Hunter, and today I'm going to be reacting to Jubilee's Men's Rights versus Feminism, and I'm just going to be giving my thoughts and opinions on the arguments of both sides and just see which ones I agree with the most. So without further ado, I'm just going to get straight into it.
Hello everyone, welcome.
Thank you for tuning in for Middle Ground, which is all about disagreeing and having a dialogue.
That's right. Make sure you stick around to the end because we want to discuss more about the ethos of Middle Ground, but for now, we hope you enjoy.
You said that women are misguided. We are not misguided. We do not need you to shepherd us.
How's it going?
Hello. Hello.
Would you call yourself a feminist?
I would.
Yes, an intersectional feminist.
When you hear the word feminism, what comes to mind?
Marxism?
To me, feminism is fairness.
I think that it's unfortunately misguided.
Feminism is a flawed movement.
When you hear the phrase men's rights, what comes to mind?
Aggression.
Advocating for the human rights of man as a class.
I start laughing.
What do you hope to get in the conversation today?
I would hope to get some insight and probably, if anything, agree on a lot more than disagreeing.
I actually hope to get a little bit more understanding of why some men think this way.
Do you think there's middle ground between men's rights activists and feminism?
We'll see.
Hi, my name is Zach, and I am 24 years old.
This is Chris. I'm a PhD student at the University of Southern California, and I'm also a Title IX specialist who challenges discrimination against men on college campuses. And I'm 30 years old.
Hi, I'm Derek. I also go by Brendio. I'm a YouTuber, and I'm also known as an incel, which is an involuntarily celibate.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I am a writer, poet, and teaching artist.
Hi, I currently work in the pet health industry, and I'm 30.
I'm 24. I'm a graduate student with a degree in health sciences, and I'm excited to be here today.
Can I get my men's rights activists in the left and my feminists on the right? You step forward if this statement is true for you. I believe men and women are different but equal.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there just because I don't like the phrasing of that question. Like, what does he mean by equal? It's like no one in life is equal, whether you compare men to men, women to women, or compare them to each other, because every single individual is going to have their own strengths and weaknesses. Like some are always going to be smarter than others. Some are always going to be better looking than others. Like, it's like no one is ever equal. So I wish that was phrased with more content, like equal when it comes to the same rights, equals when it comes to having the same opportunities, or equal when it comes to having the same potential as men and being able to do the same jobs as men. Like, I wish that was phrased better, because I've never liked the way that question is phrased. No one is equal.
I know as a woman that I don't have the same physical strengths. Men and women are built differently. I think whenever things are built differently, it's for a reason, right? But at the same time, the amount of limits that have been put on women historically, like the fact that not too long ago we were just allowed to start voting. Even today, like the wage gap, just all types of stuff. Like, women just don't have a lot of rights that are just, it should have nothing to do with what gender we are to be able to be paid equally or just be treated with respect. So, yeah.
I do believe...
Okay, I'm going to respond to what she just said. I agree with most of what she just said, except for the wage gap. That has been debunked and proven false. But she is correct. I do feel like in society's eyes, women are still deemed as inferior because they still play second fiddle to a lot of things. And even when you think back in the day, like when women had to stay in the house because people thought all they could do was take care of the kids and that they weren't smart enough to do the same jobs as men. And I do think that same mentality has carried over and is still ever present in today's society, because a lot of women still don't get the same opportunities and the same recognition as men, and they still get like looked at without respect. Like all like when a woman gets in a position of power or famous in social media, all people ever look at her is her body or her face or how she looks. It's like they never look at a woman's achievements or anything like that. So I do agree with what she said, and I do think men still place a lot of limits and barriers in place for women. So I do agree with that.
That of course there are biological differences between men and women, and of course there should also be legal equality. Of course I disagree with the idea that women face systemic discrimination. You just mentioned the wage gap, which has been debunked so many times.
Oh yes, and again, in today's society, women are, I still think women are looked at as objects. Like, I remember an interview with Scarlett Johansson, and a reporter asked a basically disrespectful question, and it was about like, it was just like, it was basically a sexist question, like, and that's why I say that, because, you know, they're still demeaned. Like, Scarlett Johansson is one of the highest paid actresses in the game, and she still is demeaned just because she is a woman. That's what I mean by, like, I still think the mentality from back in the day has carried over.
I've studied evolutionary biology quite a bit, and men and women are very different from not just a physical, you know, the bone structure, the neurological department as well as the chemical balances. And also, I don't believe that men and women are equal under the law either, or they should be rather. Children are not equal under the law, and it's not because we hate children, it's because we love them and we want to protect them.
So,
Okay, he just spoke a bunch of nonsense. Like you just compared women to children, saying that women are equal under the law and that we place limits on them because they're children and they need to be protected. Women are not children and they do not need to be protected. And you just stated the obvious. Of course, women are different biologically. Like, what was your point of stating that? It just made no sense.
you believe we're not equal, then that you're inferring that one would be greater than the other.
Well, so let me
So that's what
chime in
I'm
with my
trying to-
perspective.
yeah.
As far as not being equal, I don't think that necessarily means inferior or superior. When it comes to certain things like roles like childbearing, a woman is going to be far more productive and a lot more nurturing than, say, a man. And when it comes to doing a lot more of the heavy lifting and the work, a man is probably going to be more suited for that role. And I don't think that makes them any better or worse. We are just built, created, and born different.
I would also
Okay, I get what he's trying to say, like men and women are different and they should embrace their differences, but like he uses the same argument like it's the Industrial Revolution, like men are obviously going to be more productive at heavy lifting. Like, this is not the Industrial Revolution. We're in a technological age where, and as we move towards the future, the mental aspect is going to be more valuable since it's going to include more technology. So physical attributes isn't really going to matter. And when it comes to jobs, like there's a sector of jobs where physical attributes does matter, but the vast majority of jobs have nothing to do with physical attributes. So men and women, when it comes to the mental aspect and the ability to learn things, are equal. So in that aspect, they can do the same jobs as men. So like I get what he's trying to say, that they are obviously different, have their own strengths and weaknesses, but like I hate when people use the same dated argument. Like, we do not live in an age where muscle matters.
to elaborate, I am not saying that they are worse overall or better overall.
They complement
like
each
he
other.
said, they do.
They complement each other
You know,
beautifully.
They work very well together.
We
when
need
they
each
are
other for
working in that
for
proper-
offspring. I
yeah.
mean, that's part of the beauty of it, and I think trying to equalize them and make them the same, and transition and all that, I don't believe is going to be the most conducive when it comes to raising children, but also just for overall well-being.
I want to note that you brought up children being unequal to adults. I just hope you weren't comparing women to children.
I'm gonna pause real quick too, because I don't like I hate what like I hate a lot of these things that the men are saying right now, like the nurturing thing. Women are more nurturing. Like I hate when men say that, because you know how men are discriminated against in the child court system, right? Like in the child court system, every time a child is involved and the decision is made like who the child should go with, it always goes to the women in most cases. And it's like men are basically putting themselves in that position, because you keep saying, oh, women are more nurturing, like men can't be nurturing. So of course the judge is gonna, when the judge decides who the child goes with, it's gonna go to the nurturing parent, which is the mother, because men are basically saying that they're incapable of being nurturing. And being nurturing is something that can be learned. Like people go to school and get licenses to teach children and to raise children. Like it's like men can be just as nurturing as women. Now when it comes to, like, I do think women have a natural instinct for being nurturing, but so do men. I don't know why men keep saying that, and then they get mad when the child always goes to the mother, and when it comes to those court cases. Like I don't know, like it's just like you can't keep saying that and they be mad at when the decision is made for the child to go to the mother, when you keep saying that. It's like so stupid. I hate when they say that. It's like so many single fathers out there who raise children by themselves, like they're nurturing. Like I just hate what they say that, because it plays like men are placing limits on themselves when they do that, and men constantly do that. I don't like it at all.
I mean, it was technically a comparison of women
Okay,
and children.
I don't need you to
suppose.
protect me. I just need you not to harm me. I can protect myself. I'm very capable of doing what I need to do. Okay?
Okay, sure.
Earn free crypto just
my
by
God,
learning
I
about it.
hate ads.
Coinbase Earn is the fast, easy, and rewarding way to learn about cryptocurrencies.
100%.
I am an incel, or an incel advocate, I suppose. I don't hate women at all. I think we're different, and they have aspects that are superior to men as well. It's just very contextual on the subject.
Toxic masculinity is real.
Another question I freaking hate. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think there is a such thing as toxic masculinity. Like, what does that mean? I think there are traits or characteristics. I think there are toxic traits and toxic characteristics that can be, attributed to men, but those same characteristics can be attributed to women too. So I think assigning that to men is just very odd. Like, just call it toxic traits. Like, don't make it seem like it's something only men do or have. And I know what they say about it. Like, oh, it's a toxic trait that is associated with being a man. But it's like not every man assumes that those characteristics are what it takes to be a man. Like, oh, not showing emotion. Like men obviously do show emotion. I just don't like that term at all.
I think that toxic masculinity is definitely a real thing. It's kind of just the idea of what masculinity should be, but it goes wrong a lot of the times, saying that violence, sex, power, being a controlling person makes you a man.
I see it in very unfortunate places, like when the young men.
Like she said, violence, sex, is power is like what men associate with being a man, but like women can show those same traits, like violence, sex, and power. Like women crave those things too. Maybe not more than men, but like I'm just saying, like if there is a such thing as toxic masculinity, then there is a such thing as toxic femininity. And I think if you admit that if you're saying that there's one, then you have to admit that there's the other. Like I just hate that when people pretend that there's only toxic masculinity. Like it feels like an attack on men. And I'm not being biased when I say that.
Boys in my family, even from like toddler age, are told you shouldn't be crying. Boys don't cry. And what that turns into, I see it when I'm in a bookstore and a guy who tries to get my number says, "Why y'all always gotta act like that?" And he sincerely had this like cracking voice, like he was hurt, but it was an entitlement. And that's toxic masculinity. It's saying like, you don't realize how your behavior is harmful.
What does toxic masculinity mean? Is it character traits? Is it upbringing?
The suppression of feeling for a lot of men, because throughout childhood they're told man up. So because of that, there's a lot of repression. Repression then is usually channeled into anger for some people because they don't not always know how to express because they were told not to express.
Okay, this is what I mean. Like, I agree with completely with what she just said. Like, I don't think that parents should be raising their sons to basically not show emotion, not show emotion. But what I mean by emotion is like most parents teach their sons not to show vulnerability, not emotions. Men obviously show emotions. Like, emotions range. It's not just crying or sadness. It's frustration and anger and stuff like that. Like, men obviously show those emotions. It's just that men don't like to show vulnerability because that's associated with being weak. And the thing that I don't like about that is because you hear women say that they would like men to show more emotion, but then when men start showing too much emotion, women don't like it. So it's like the women ask for that, but then they actually don't want that. Like, just think about that. Like, if you had a significant other that was always crying or showing too much emotion all the time, you wouldn't like it either, and you would most likely be turned off by it. But I do think that men should sometimes show emotion to like their girlfriend or wife, but it shouldn't be shown in public because that's not something that's not something that you should share with the public. That's something you should share with like a close friend or something like that. But I do agree with the majority of what she just said.
So upbringing and
That's part of
environment.
it,
Okay.
yes.
But not something that's inherently a part
No.
of men.
No.
Okay.
I think that, when you're showing your emotions, especially to like, random people, random women in some cases, they will view you as weak. I was raised by a single mother. I love her. She's my mom. I love her. But I could have used being told to act like a man. I think back, there were some cases where I was too emotional, and that negatively affected how I, what happened to me. And,
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What is your definition of weak as a man?
Not being as forward as you could be, not being as honest, or trying to be not as emotional as you don't need to be. You don't have to cry over a cut. I know, sometimes cuts hurt a lot, but sometimes it's necessary to be strong for the benefit of not just yourself, but for the people around you. It's fine to act emotional in certain cases, but I don't think it's fine to act that way with a woman. Maybe, you have a really good friend and he sees you cry, like, he's your best friend and you're crying about something really personal. I think that's fine.
I feel like you're complete.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I hate the guy, but I do agree with some of what he said. Like, in some cases, it's not all right to show emotions, like in public, or if you're at your job. Like, I don't think it's okay to show emotions there. But in front of someone close to you, then it's okay to show emotion. I just think like too much emotion, like it has to be the right amount. Like, if it's something you really need to get out and you need to cry in front of your girlfriend or wife, just do it. Don't let it build up, but don't do it all the time because, again, like I said, women say that they want their partners to show emotion, but they really don't want that because women like strong men. When I be my strong, like it could just be mentally strong, not physically, but mentally strong. Like, they don't want someone who's weak and who's always going to be complaining and going towards them with their problems. They want someone who can fix their own problems, but that will share their problems with them, but they can go and fix their problems on their own. So I do think he has a point with that. But I don't know why he thinks that you shouldn't show emotions in front of your girlfriend or significant other. Like, you're gonna have to show emotions sometimes because you can't keep it keep it bottled up all the time. Like if something is really affecting you, then you should just talk it out.
Being two different situations, because you started off with saying a random person or even women. So it feels like, okay, this is a woman that you don't have a bond with or any type of relationship with. And then you mentioned, or in front of your best friend, you know, that's okay to cry. Well, that woman could be your best friend. That, you know, like, so.
I don't think you
and
can friends
again,
with a woman, so.
Because you don't see us as equal, as you said before.
I don't think showing emotions is a sign of weakness. I actually think it's a sign of strength. Men do live shorter lives, and that's because of a repression of emotions, and that's due to many things that patriarchy has instilled.
Repression of emotions.
It has been shown that a person's well-being, their lifespan is shortened when they are not able to express their emotions. In addition, when they don't have physical touch or when they don't have a partner to keep them company. We are human beings here. We need to talk to each other. If you think that our health isn't affected when you're not able to express that you are sad or upset, you're wrong.
Okay, I don't think she's right about that. Like, I have read some articles that show men always suppressing their emotions do lead to some serious issues like suicide and lifespan issues. I don't know how true it is, but I do know that it does contribute to men's suicide rate, because like I said before, like she said before, men are always told not to show their emotion, to always keep it bottled up, and you can only keep it bottled up so long. So she does have a point with that. But like I said before, like, you can show emotion, but pick and choose where you show emotion. Like, do it in privacy and do it with someone close to you, but only be as emotional as you need to be, because like no one really likes an over emotional person. That's just a fact. Like, if you have a friend that's always crying and always coming to you with issues, like, even you're gonna get annoyed with it. That's just a fact. So I think that's the issue, that men and women, when they say that men should show emotion or just show emotion in general, like, that's their problem they ignore, is like too much emotion can be detrimental. Like I'm gonna give you some personal experience, like living in the projects, right? Like, this is not an environment where I should be showing emotion out in public, because that can lead to, you know, me getting bullied or just a variety of things. Like, when you live in the projects, you have to show a neutral or stone cold exterior, because that's just how you survive. Like, the environment contributes, your circumstances contributes to, you know, the circumstances of, you know, suppressing your emotions. So like, that's just the way it is in the society we live in.
I think that men's rights activists are only men's rights activists as a response to women expressing that they want more equality. I don't think they focus on actual men's rights issues, and rather it's just an attack on women and feminism.
I mean, to be honest, that's not true, because men's rights activists do actually, like, men are discriminated against in society. Like I said before, when it comes to the child court system or whatever, like, men are discriminated there. Men are discriminated in the justice system. Like, men are discriminated against, and these are issues that, you know, that men's rights activists do, you know, fight for. So I don't think it's an attack against women. I do see why they would feel that way, but the same thing can be said about feminism too, because you're attacking, like, a lot of feminine women are attacking men. So men also do feel attacked by feminism. So it's both sides that feel attacked.
Today, women have more advantages than men.
I can speak from a hiring standpoint when it comes to things like affirmative action, and there are certain roles that traditionally men and women have been able to serve in, and now women can basically do all of those things, right? Because we've had such a strong advocacy for equal representation in the workplace. Whereas, for example, you know, you'll never find a man as a midwife nurse, and I don't think it's appropriate. That's why there are those differences.
Okay, like I just said, men place limits on themselves. Like, why isn't it appropriate for a man to be a midwife nurse? Like, like, I hate when men do that. Like, it's like they complain about things, but then you're the one doing it to yourself. Like, it's just so stupid.
Women in like the most important parts of society have an advantage. There's a lot of positions that men simply aren't getting hired at anymore because of the fact that they're a man. And it's not just in the workforce, it's also, I would say, it's a lot easier for a woman to find a relationship, even if she, says finding the right guy is so hard. It really isn't. But sometimes for a lot of guys, finding a girl at all is hard.
He just seems like a salty dude that can't get a girlfriend. Like, everybody has relationship problems and finding the right person. It's like, what is he talking about? He just seems like that jealous dude that's just jealous of every guy that gets a girlfriend or gets them. But I will say that they are capping, like I said before, they each have their own advantages and disadvantages. But like, the question you should ask yourself, right? Like all the other men out there, right? If you had the chance, would you want to be a woman? The answer would definitely be no. Just because women get looked at, like they're a piece of meat. Like, if you're a woman and you get looked at like that, you will feel disgusted. Women also get raped. They also face discrimination for being women. Like, it's like no man would ever say that if they had the chance, they would want to be a woman. Unless they're part of the LGBTQ community. But like, any straight man would never say, I would like to be a woman, just because of what they go through. Like, that is cap.
If I have to consider what I wear before stepping out the house, because I don't want to draw some type of attention, I don't know how many other men have to consider, is this outfit going to be deemed safe for me? Any situations I have experienced where like I physically felt endangered simply because I don't want to give my number out. It's part of that entitlement for men. You're not entitled a conversation with me. You're not entitled to my number.
That aside, it's like, are you going to make one example of the entitlement of men when it comes to asking for your number be the all-encompassing thing that all men have a problem when it comes to approaching women?
Well, firstly, it's not just an example. It's not necessarily all men. I don't dislike men.
Why did she say that? Like she disliked men. Like she said, I don't dislike men, and she had a look that basically said the opposite. But like I said before, I do agree with what she just said. Like they have to question what they wear. Sometimes they can go outside and do nothing, and just because they look beautiful, men will come up and hit on them, and they will feel, and they could get raped off of that. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, no man will want to be a woman, because they do go through a lot. That's why I am understanding why women are attacking men, but at the same time, I also disagree with it, because they do generalize a lot. Like, there are bad human beings in the world. There are just like there are good human beings in the world and bad human beings in the world. There are good men in the world and there are bad men in the world. Just because there are bad men do these bad things, that does not mean all men do them. And that's what they do a lot of. Like, they generalize it and say it's all men. Like, not all men have the same characteristics and traits.
Love sports, I play video games. I have bros, I hang out with dudes. We just want men to realize that if you have friends that are having locker room talk, as a man, as an ally, please say something to your friends.
Do you think repressing...
Okay, I don't agree with that. I know I'm pausing a lot, but I just don't know. Like, I know it feels like I'm attacking both sides, but it's just because I don't agree with what they say. Like, locker room talk is locker room talk. Like, as long as they're not talking about raping women or criminal stuff like that, like, it's like, what is the problem with locker room talk? Women have their own version of a locker room talk where they talk about men's bodies, like, just the same as when men talk about women's bodies. Like, locker room talk is not a problem. And then they talk about, oh, men shouldn't suppress their emotions and da-da-da-da. But you're basically telling men to suppress their emotions by telling them not to do locker room talk, because when they're doing locker room talk and they're chilling with their friends, it's like they're showing emotions and they're sharing and talking. Like, there's no problem with locker room talk as long as it doesn't cross a certain line. And I can already tell that I can already tell what they're gonna say about locker room talk. Like, they're gonna say, oh, but your words harm people. It's like, words don't harm people. The physical action harms people. Like, if you're gonna be offended by what people say, then you shouldn't go outside.
That is really the solution here, though. If it's in a healthy male space,
There's nothing
I don't think
healthy
that's
about
healthy. I think it's
no,
toxic in itself.
I mean, if you're making jokes and you're doing all of that.
Jokes that are harmful jokes are not healthy because they just lead to people normalizing things. People always say, oh, it's just a joke, but when someone else hears it, they don't realize how that resonates, and again, how that turns into violence. Like, this is not an isolated situation. I'm only thinking of 3 off the top of my head because if I think of too many, I'm gonna spiral
So
right now.
what's the alternative? Men shouldn't talk about these things.
No, I think men
one's
can
ever
have a
said
healthy
that.
dialogue. I don't think men have to be toxic in order to have a conversation. I know plenty of men that are able to have conversations about healthy, productive things, just like women are.
Well, it's not obviously something that I have personal experience with, but only 1% of all people on the death row are women in this country. So when women and men commit identical crimes, women are much more likely to, for example, escape the death penalty. And that's just plain sex-based discrimination.
That I agree on.
To be honest, I thought he was the smartest person in the room, but I don't know why he just say that. Like, I know a lot of people use that argument, like, oh, the percentage of men in jail are is way higher than women. Do you want to equalize that? But it's like, it's like, what kind of argument is that? So you want women to be in jail the same rate as men? It's like, I don't know. I never got that argument. Like, it just made zero sense.
True. Look, I'm thinking about basic needs, like around the globe, the women who don't even have like proper like sanitary like products.
I mean, I have to agree. Just small things like a tax on a box of tampons. Do you think I choose to do this monthly? No, trust me. So why should I have to pay taxes when this is a medical necessity?
We're just like.
I get what she's saying, but at the same time, it's like people aren't like, this is America. People aren't in the business of doing stuff for free. If someone is making the product, they're obviously not going to charge it for free. But on the other hand, I do think that women's sanitary products should be free, but that's just not the way it works. Like, if someone makes a product, like, they're obviously going to charge for it.
Dismissed. A lot of our symptoms, a lot of the things we report, especially women of color, but women across the board, are just treated a lot less equally.
I'd say that I'm an advocate for what I believe the role that men play in society. I believe that their views should be expressed openly, that they should be given a platform to do so, and I believed in men unapologetically and unashamedly being men as we were created.
Yeah, that's kind of cringe.
I think in my heart that there are things that men are entitled to. I am all about human rights, and I do consider the rights of every human, but every time I hear of a men's rights activist, I hear anger and I hear very illogical reasoning, and it just boils my blood because it's a setback for all of us.
I feel that the other side does not understand my values.
Of course they're gonna all go up because they've been disagreeing this whole time.
I think a lot of times when a movement is created, the other side thinks that they're being attacked or think that it's some like attempt at erasure. That's not what feminism is about at all. What do you need a whole men's rights activism movement for? I'm sincerely confused.
Well, I mean, like, I will advocate for positive masculinity and what men should represent and healthy outlets for men. Like, I still think the Boy Scouts should be exclusively the Boy Scouts, for example, one of those things. Where I would like to think that we could get some common ground is when it comes to the clear biases that are in the court system, especially in the marriage and family court system, right? And right there is what I would advocate for when it comes to men's rights.
The things that stand valid, like that I'm hearing from y'all that are like valid to me, come from a place of like, I am treated like unfairly by the system, versus a lot of the things women are saying. It's also America and the system as well, but a lot of it is like harm from men.
How and where?
How and where what?
Where's this harm from men coming from?
Okay, it started when I was young. I'm not gonna talk too long. I was 16, got a bottle thrown at me because I told a boy no. It started when I was in a club, a boy touched me, I said no, he kept touching me, it got to the point he got violent. It gets to the point that the only reason why a man decided to stop touching me in the bookstore I talked about earlier is because he realized my husband was not too far away, and he said, sorry bro, never said sorry to me. That's why, and that's off the top of my head. This is why I get upset, because I'm like, I'm here to talk about like, how you feel, but when you just dismiss the fact that women actually have experiences, that's when it seems like it's about more than your rights. It seems like it's about your ego. And that's where I get pissed off, because how dare you tell another human being that their experiences, what they're telling you right in front of your face, is not valid.
I didn't say they were invalid, I said how and why. I'm trying to understand.
How and why?
listen.
Because it happened. It happened many times. It happened yesterday. It happened the day before.
Okay, I think some of
Okay, she just got triggered hard. And I'm not gonna lie, like, the cast for this seems bad. Like, I would give it a 4 or 5 out of 10, because it's some people that really just take away from the debate. Like, you have the guy in the yellow jacket, he takes away from what the other two guys say. So whenever they say something and they have a point and he starts speaking, it just takes away from everything they just said. And when the African American girl right there that just got triggered, when the other two women make points, she takes away from their argument, because it's like, what are you getting triggered for? He just asked a simple question. And I get that she has had experiences and that she has had some stuff that happened to her, but like, you shouldn't get emotional about it, especially in a debate, because it's not really useful, because then it just becomes about who had the worst experience. It doesn't become a logical argument, or it doesn't become a debate with reason and logic. It just becomes a he said, she said. Oh, I had this done to me. Oh no, I had this done to me. It just becomes who had the worst experience. Like, I don't like debates like that, but I do understand where she's coming from. But she's letting what she experienced be the end all and be all. Like, what she's experienced with men, she's generalizing that, and she's letting that be the basis of how she judges all men, because I can sincerely see that she is hostile. And I sense that from the beginning, when she said, I'm confused, when they said, what do you think of when you hear men's activism or men's rights, and she said she laughed or something because she thought it was a joke. It's like you could sense the hostility from a mile away. So I think she's taking away from the debate, and the guy with the yellow jacket is taking away from the debate. And it's just ruining the debate overall, to be honest.
things that you guys are touching on, such as the court system and gender roles, are a subject of patriarchy, and that's part of what women are trying to dismantle, is those traditional gender roles.
Are there any feminist organizations that have done anything, for example, to challenge bias against men and fathers in the family court system?
Absolutely.
Can you please give me a list of feminist advocacy organizations that have engaged in any meaningful advocacy?
Damn, she mad because this guy came prepared and she didn't. I can already tell. Like, he probably came with statistics and lists and stuff like that, and she didn't come with anything. And to be honest, there probably are women that do advocate for those things, but I don't think it's a lot of them, to be honest. Like, when you see a lot of feminists, right, and they want men to join them, what they really want is just men to be puppets, and for them to basically, talk to other men and get them on their sides. Like, they won't ever discuss men's issues, and they won't ever, validate them. Like, and it's the same, like, if they want men to join them, right, and men have a problem with, like, some of the issues with the feminist movement, right? Do you think they would sit there and hear your thoughts on it? they would deny you straight away just because they think they could do no wrong. Like, you heard from the beginning when the women said, what does feminism mean to you? And they said fairness. Like the original feminist movement I could get behind, but the new wave where it's just radical feminism, like where that they're just attacking men or in general, it's like, I don't know.
Address those issues because there are actually none.
Okay, I know that you came with your little research or whatever. I didn't come with a list of like feminist organizations, but I know actively that there are women's organizations that are trying to dismantle those inequalities.
Just one name, just one
Again, I
organization.
didn't come with a list, my dude.
There are no such organizations.
Said my dude.
That's a Chromebook with built-in virus protection, so you can click with confidence.
With
no more of this,
kind of mean,
and a
though.
lot more peace of mind. Move along, viruses. Switch to built-in virus protection. Switch to Chromebook.
In what ways are men's rights at risk?
I think there has been significant progress over the last decade or so, especially in the legal field, but I think there are still significant disparities that need to be addressed, such as poor health conditions, bias against men in the criminal justice system, bias against men in family courts, and bias against men in the educational system, especially in colleges.
Men and women should be allies.
Before we get to this thing though, I lost my train of thought. What was I about to say? Oh yeah, I was gonna say that like they're like it's just like, you know, in today's society, right, when African Americans or any minority, they say, oh, white people don't have the right to talk or have an opinion because they have white privilege. So you see how the tables had turned, like white people have all the power now, all the powers in the minorities, at least when it comes to like social media. So basically white people can't have an opinion, right? So I'm kind of seeing the same thing here. Like, you see how traditionally men were always in power, and now the roles are kind of reversing, where women are kind of like getting their revenge, saying, oh, men shouldn't have an opinion, or men shouldn't have the right to talk about feminism or anything when it comes to females. Like, I just found that interesting because it's like a lot of things that happened in history are coming to bite people back in the ass. I just found that interesting.
Men, unfortunately, many of them don't want to even have this open dialogue that we're sharing right now. We need men to help be allies, to help speak to other men.
It strikes me, like the way you phrase this, you almost want men to say certain things that you want them to say, as opposed to maybe actually listening to what they're saying.
What certain things would I want to hear?
Just kind of like men being allies, men talking to other men, etc. I'm completely okay with that, but I'm not going to repeat like feminist talking points to other men.
We all believe different things. We may be under the label of men's rights activists, but for example, I'm probably the most traditionalist person here. I think we should be allies, but maybe us being allies in a patriarchy wouldn't be so bad. You know, us going back.
You see what I mean, right? Like, in my opinion, the guy just had like a drop the mic moment, right? But then this guy in the yellow jacket, whatever his name is, Derek, he opens his mouth and it just subtracts from everything he just said because he wants to be a douchebag or an asshole. It's like, I don't know why they picked him. Like I noticed they do this in some of their videos where they have a group of people, right? And you have certain people in the group that they pick to represent men or represent certain topics, and they do a bad job of representing the topic. Like, he's doing a bad job of representing men, and it's just taking away from everything. Like, I don't like it. Like, I hate that. Like, they could have found someone better than him. I know they could have. I don't know why they picked him. Maybe for the controversy he'll cause, or just the laughter, because some of the stuff coming out of his mouth is funny. But I don't like
To
it.
the past wouldn't be so bad. It would probably be a lot happier if we were, getting married and staying married and having kids and, going to church and all that, la-di-da-di-da.
While speaking to the three of you, I feel like you're each coming from different perspectives. So it's hard to, again, just like our perspectives, it's hard to generalize. So to me, I feel like there are certain things that, even though we're not fully agreeing on it, things may get lost in translation, our verbiage may not be 100% correct, that we could at least agree on.
Can I ask one question? What would you envision would be the ideal man with the end goal of feminism as far as educating men or working to dismantle whatever patriarchy is? Like, what does that man look like?
It starts with childhood. We have to teach children as well as girls, because we're also taught, because of toxic masculinity, what a man should be as well.
I think that we just need to hold men accountable. In order to kind of make progress, we need help from people that will listen. Because let's be real, when we express our concerns, a lot of men refuse to listen, but they would be more likely to listen to another man.
Do you also feel like you have an ethical obligation to challenge other women or other feminists when, for example, they deny that men face discrimination?
When it comes to things like, men can't be abused. I've had this conversation with another woman, and it's the idea that just because a man may be physically stronger than us does not mean they cannot be abused. And because of that, again, fairness, women need to be held accountable as well.
I get what she's saying. Like, when he asked her the question and she said women do need to be held accountable, but the fact of the matter is they're not. Like, when she just said men could be abused by women, right? Look at the story with Johnny Depp and his wife, right? His wife accused Johnny Depp of abusing her and hitting her, right? And everybody jumped on the bandwagon and condemned Johnny Depp and almost ruined his career because they believed her without any evidence. And then it came out a while later that she was the one abusing Johnny Depp. She was hitting him, she was punching him. It's like, and then no one ever, like, I haven't seen anyone really cover the topic, and I haven't seen it explode like how when Johnny Depp was accused of abusing his wife, that exploded everywhere. His wife was going to rallies and stuff talking about her experience that was fake, but then when it came out to be fake and Johnny Depp was telling the truth, and in fact the tables were turned because she's the abuser, that story got no traction whatsoever. So women aren't actually held accountable when stuff like this happens to men. Like, it's only like men that are held accountable and falsely accountable for stuff that they didn't do. So I just think it's funny, like, that she says that, because I don't know, it's just the way society works now. It's like I said, the things men did in the past is coming back to bite them in the ass.
I want to understand their viewpoint. As a woman and a woman of color, I know how it feels to be disenfranchised. So I want to understand why they feel the need to have a men's rights movement.
I feel empathy for the other side.
I don't think there's ever a time in my life where a person says they're hurting and I don't at least try to listen or understand. My only thing is that I want the same in return. So when I'm genuinely saying I'm hurting or I've been through something, and it's not just a personal experience, because I actively do this work and surround myself with women saying I've been hurt by a man before. I get that you have stories, but I mean, that's actually my question. I haven't heard y'all stories. Like, I've sat up here and said I have 3 on the top of my head. I have about 30 plus probably, and I haven't heard y'all say this is what happened to me.
I don't think that.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right there before he talks. I don't think telling personal stories of like the bad stuff that happened to you is going to contribute to the conversation, because like I said before, then it just devolves into who had the who had the worst thing happen to them. Like, it's like, I have this saying, it's like the most stupidest thing ever. Like, people say, oh well, my father died. Well, my mother and father both died. It's like, what is the argument? Like, nobody can have a proper discussion, a proper debate about based on that. Like I get if you have a personal story, but tell it in a way where it's not based on emotion, and you're not trying to like make that a part of the argument. Like, it's just, I don't like it at all. Like, them telling their personal stories is not going to contribute to the argument at all. Telling their opinions, telling facts, and telling telling their points of view, like that's going to contribute to the argument. Like, personal stories aren't going to contribute. Like, I get that like I said before, I get that she went through some stuff in her past and she's had some bad experiences with men, but her stories aren't going to contribute to the argument, because that's just your experience. Not all men are like that.
I'll ever invalidate a woman's feelings when she says, hey, I've been abused or whatnot. I don't think any of us here are rightfully saying that. But I think what's dangerous is when emotional testimony that may not always be what it is gets, creates bias, right?
Okay, I feel empathy for women being lost, being misguided. Look,
Oh my God, you see what he just takes away from the argument. Like, I know they gotta pick someone better.
I don't know. You can go.
Do you have any bit of empathy for anything we said up here?
Yes, I really do feel empathy for
Why
women.
was that so hard to say?
He's
Like,
just
for the
being
stuff
a
that we
troll.
said, do you have any bit of
Like,
empathy for the
I know I'm not
stories I said
laughing,
up
but on the
here?
inside, I
just want to know.
I do.
Like, I'm not even trying to be hostile. I just genuinely want to know.
Yeah, I just think that like a lot of the problems that have happened in your life are because society is not patriarchal. It's not traditional. it's we're gone. We're lost. We're in a fallen state, right?
Oh my God, bro. He's such a freaking troll, man. He really is. It's like he said that most of the issues are because it's not a patriarchy. Most of the problems women face now is because men are in power. Like, not long ago, when women weren't able to vote and all they could do was stay in the house and take care of the kids, and they had their civil liberties basically restricted. That is because men were in power and they were not happy about it. It's like, what are you talking about? It's so freaking funny, man. He's a troll, man.
There is a change of guard, not necessarily a change of guard, but things are evolving, things are changing. And I feel like a lot of men speak from a viewpoint almost of fear. A lot of men are having a hard time grasping that and feeling comfortable with it.
I do feel empathy for your personal experience, but I cannot sympathize with your ideological position, because that ideological position is built on a fallacy, and that fallacy is actually that's causing very real consequences for men as a class in this country. So I understand that you are here with us as kind of the good feminist, so to speak, that you feel empathy for men, and I believe you, but I do not believe your movement, and I do not believe your ideology.
All right, we'll leave it at that. That's a wrap, guys.
I wish he talked more, because he didn't really get to talk compared to everybody else, and I would like to hear more of his thoughts, to be honest.
Yay.
I'm sweaty.
Okay.
You are very articulate.
Oh, thank
you.
So are you.
Yes, thank you.
Been stories for a long time.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, wow, that was interesting. John, what do you think it means to disagree thoughtfully?
I think when you disagree, it's important to acknowledge the other side's opinion and to kind of respect that opinion and to know that maybe you can't change it. And I think like we've had a lot of middle grounds where people stick to their sides, but they at least acknowledge and try their best to understand where the other person is coming from. And sometimes I think that's the best we can ask for.
Well, we want to hear from y'all too. Let us know about...
Okay. I'm going to give my final thoughts on it. But I would say one more thing. I think the problem with today's society is that no one wants to listen. Everybody is so concerned with being right and saying their piece that they're not listening to the other side, and that because of that they lack the ability to understand and just to sit back and take everything in. That's why like you have all of these movements that are basically turning bad and where it's feeling like a personal attack. Like you have the Me Too movement, the feminist movement, like all of these movements that originally were intended for good have basically took a wrong turn, and now it feels like men are being personally attacked from these movements, and because of that, most men don't support these movements. Like men will say, okay, I get the necessity for it, or I get why we need it, but then they won't completely agree with it because you have women taking advantage of those movements for their personal gain, lying, saying that men did certain things that they didn't do, like they raped them, they touched them, they were inappropriate with them when they didn't do that, and it ends up ruining the man's reputation or career. So I'll say that. But overall, about the debate, it's hard to say who I agree with most. Like, I know it felt like I was coming from both sides, but that's because both sides were just saying stuff that I didn't like. But I mostly agree. Like, it's mostly split between them both, half-half, but I'm leaning more towards the women just because I felt that, like, they didn't have a lot of points where it was based on facts, but what they said was just common sense. Like, women do face a lot of issues and stuff like that. But I don't know, it was hard to say. Just because you had those two people that were taking away from the argument, like you had the black African American female who was really emotional and hostile. So was the other one, the one with the curly hair. So was her, but it wasn't to an annoying degree. And then you had the guy with the leather jacket where he was taking away from what the men were saying. And just because of that, it's hard to say who I agree with most, but I would say I agree more towards the women. So those are my thoughts. Leave any comments below about who you agree with most and your thoughts on the video. That's it. Have a nice